and just to have a fun time discussing a book that hopefully we've all read, or most of us have read and have grown to love. So we will get started. Can you hear me okay without the mic? Okay, thank you. I was on spring break, and it was Thursday. I just had a couple days before I had to go back to work, and I was hit with the inspiration to write a story about a woman who finds a creature with wings. And that's pretty much all that I had thought of, all that I was thinking of. Just started writing and couldn't stop. It was one of the first ideas that I actually was able to put on paper and had no idea where it was going, but just kept going with it and to see where it went. A lot of people think that when you start to write a book that you have to start with an idea. Think of an event, or that you have some grandiose idea of what is going to play out when you start to write. I tend to work with characters. I think of people that just come into my mind, and I start to write from their perspective, think of what they relate to, what's important to them, and I just start to put their words down. I think that process is probably what a lot of authors do, even if they don't realize it, because if you don't have people in place, you really don't have a story in place. When I teach my students at school, we've made books before, we've done short stories, and that's always what we talk about first, is starting with a character. Because it has to be somebody, male or female, it has to be somebody that you love and relate to for it to be able to work. So, I had an idea to get it started, and I thought to myself, has this been done before? Went to the bookstore and saw a ton of young adult novels, a ton of adult novels that have been written about creatures with wings, but mostly they're all angels. And this particular idea didn't really seem to be out there, of incorporating the Greek mythology and taking a centaur and kind of stripping away his half horse, half human, or half horse, half man nature, and adding wings to it. So it did seem to be original enough, but any author will tell you that no book idea really is original. They've all been done over and over again, and what makes it unique is your words and putting it into action and what you bring to the process. So the first day that I sat down to write, I probably wrote about 20 pages on my computer, and from there, I just started thinking, oh my God, I have to go back to work on Monday, and all I want to do is sit here and explore this story some more. I had no idea where it was going, what was going to happen with it, but by Sunday night, I had written about 75 pages, and I was like, okay, I know that I have something special here. I have spent months getting to 75 pages in the past, and usually doesn't go past that. So the fact that that could happen in such a limited amount of time really told me that there was something special here. So let's talk about our characters. The story started with Savannah. She's not required, but they depend on their population to keep producing, to keep themselves going. So that's kind of where that came into play. Savannah and Kendrick obviously had to have compatibility from page one. So I had the task of really trying to make that jump off the page and show that they really cared for each other, so that that became evident. And in the first draft, I can remember sending it off to an agent who had asked to see the entire book, and I was so thrilled to send off the entire manuscript of having to rewrite. And if you were one of my test readers who started from the very beginning, and have seen the different revisions it's gone through, it has changed quite a bit. Their chemistry, I hope, is evident from the very beginning, and they establish their relationship much quicker. All right, then we had to find a place to put our characters. So I got on Google and started looking up small towns, And I knew I wanted it to be a beach town because I wanted her to find him on the beach, and I wanted it to be a small town that doesn't have a lot going on with it, so nobody already has a preconceived notion of what goes on there. So I found Folly Beach in South Carolina, and that started the process of looking up on MapQuest, Google Maps, researching the Chamber of Commerce's page just to see what goes on in Folly Beach, down to what streets they have so that I could be authentic and use the correct street names in the book, down to the mileage and how far the airport is away, and if you could even take a taxi from the airport, because they have several airports in Charleston, and what would be the best way for our characters to travel once they get into Charleston to get to Folly Beach. So there was definite research that had to go into it to make the whole thing realistic, because if anybody's going to go look it up, I need to be credible for that. Oops, look at that. I jumped in a lot. Sorry, I don't know what I did. Okay, there we go. So I had to be credible, but then using my own license up there to really just show that not every man is like Kendrick, and not everything is going to be easy in a relationship, and life is hard. And he's there just to make Kendrick squirm in a lot of ways, and that's just fun. All right, so then we've got our three characters, and they've got their backstories, but then we need a real central argument, because love triangles have been done over and over again. If we just left it at Kendrick versus Savannah versus Connor, it would get very boring very quickly. So I looked up, I went back to who my main person is, Kendrick. He is half centaur, half human, so I started researching centaurs to see what kind of history they have. And as luck would have it, they have a rich history of being enemies of the Lapiths, which I had never even heard of. I love Greek mythology, but I had never even heard of that word. So I looked up Lapiths and Centaurans and read the story about them, and Apollo, the god of healing, light, and truth, he took a mate, and she ended up having twin sons, Lapithus and Centaurus, and the whole backstory is explained in the novel, but they were two twin brothers that got along very well until there was a fissure in their relationship, and Centaurus was banished, and Lapithus continued to live on Earth. And then I kind of went off on my own and created a whole another planet for both of them. But what had happened between them, between the two brothers, is at a wedding for the king of the Lapiths, King Perithous, his wife was actually taken by a centaur and raped. So their relationship between the two factions from that point on just completely fell apart, and they've been fighting ever since, if you believe in Greek mythology. So I kind of went off on that tangent, and I thought to myself, okay, well, this is great that this happened thousands of years ago, but what if we brought it to 2010 at the time, and what if these characters were real people and they were still dealing with the fallout of this? So that's where Kendrick comes in as the leader of the Centaurian race, but then you've got the Lapiths on this end, who are a much bigger population, a much more prosperous planet, and they end up butting heads. And what if we brought that to Earth, and how would that affect bringing humans into it? So that's where the central conflict between them came in. And then our Lapiths in the story landed in Roma. Also extremely fun to write. They were brought in just to show that the Centaurians do not have any claim to Earth. In fact, the Lapiths actually do. They've been here for quite a while, and when the Centaurs come to Earth, they make up their mind that that's not okay. And especially when the Centaurs come to the Earth with the intention of taking away human women to help populate their own planet, definitely not okay with that. So Landon has risen up as kind of an extremist on Lipithia, and for those of you who haven't read it, the Lapiths could teleport. So coming to Earth is extremely easy for them. So they have come to Earth to kind of lay claim to it, believing that they have the right to be here because Apollo never banished them, they just banished the centaurs. So that's a little bit of backstory. All right, and then I just wanted to say a quick note about writing dialogue and setting up action. There are several fight scenes in the book, and they were all researched again. I don't like doing research, but it's necessary. But basically, I hope that they came across realistic as possible. They're mostly, in this one, I think it's mostly fist fights, but everything did have to be looked up. I had to look up what, I've never been in a fight, so what would happen if somebody delivered a right cross to this direction, how you would come at them, and my search history on my internet was probably very sketchy because I was looking up how to hang somebody and how to twist someone's neck, and it got a little crazy, but it all brings authenticity to the story. And then as far as dialogue, I talk to my characters constantly. I will be in my car, I have a half-hour commute to work, and I will just constantly be holding conversations. Depending on what people think of those books, right away you have a polarizing opinion. So I had to be able to talk about it and make it sound unique and bring people in. And a lot of that is just starting to believe in your work, which is very hard to do until other people start to believe that what you're doing is special. All right, Excel. Just by a show of hands, who heard it? Yay, okay. All right, this was an amazing just blessing from God this whole day. There was no plan attached to this. It was literally the second to last day, I think, before summer vacation was going to end, and I got a new box of books in the mail, and I had heard Laura Diaz talking the previous week from Johnny's house, the morning show on XL, that she was reading 50 Shades of Grey, and I was reading 50 Shades of Grey. So I thought, hey, she likes to read, maybe she would read my book. So I wanted to mail her a copy of the book just to give her. And then I figured, well, if she gets one, then I should probably give one to Claire, and then why not just do the guys as well, because maybe they have someone that they can give it to. So I was set to just mail it, and then from talking to my mom and husband, I just kept asking them, do you think that I could go in person and talk to them? Do you think that that's a thing? I could drop off books? And they were like, yeah, probably. What's the worst that they could do? So one Wednesday morning at about 5:30 in the morning, Kyle and I got up and, again, had no plan. We just figured we would go down to XL, and we thought, hey, they probably have a reception desk. We can just drop off the books, talk to somebody really nice, we'll bring them donuts, and they'll pass the books along. And then we get down to the Clear Channel Communications building, and there is no reception desk. There are just hallways with a bunch of locked doors, and you can't get in to talk to anybody. So we sat there for about 5 minutes, and I'm wondering, should I try texting the morning show? Should I try calling in? I've never gotten through. Every time I call in, it's a busy signal. Meanwhile, sporadic people are walking by, and after they walk by, I ask him, should I have said something to them? But the opportunity is gone. So we're basically just sitting there, not really accomplishing anything. And then Johnny Magic just comes strolling through the lobby and asked if we had been helped yet, and we said no, and he asked who we were here to see, and we said him, and he was just kind of staring at us, and I said, I brought you donuts, and he's like, okay. And he said, okay, and I was like, oh, and books. I also have books. So, right away, I mean, he was just the nicest person. He just said, okay, come on back. He's like, just come back with me for a minute. So we're just kind of shuffling back through the hallways down to the little XL chambers, and within about 10 minutes, they had me going on the air promoting the book and talking about it. Within probably 2 minutes of being in there, Claire was already finding me on Facebook and tweeting to all of their followers, we just got this girl who crashed the studio. Johnny is sitting there telling me that I've got guts to walk in there, and that anybody who will just show up to a station and bring donuts and books probably deserves his time. So it was just a real serendipitous moment. Never could have expected that. I just spent the whole time just kind of in shock, hoping that I said something coherent on the air. And then we left the building, and as soon as we got in the car, Kyle looks up on Facebook, and I had already had like 20 new people within the 5 minutes from talking and leaving the building. So it was just a shocking moment, because I work my butt off for every single person that I get to like that Facebook page, and it feels like beg, borrowing, and stealing just to get people to listen to you and come to your Facebook page, come to your Twitter account. So it was just, it could not have gone any better. All right, so ebooks. Before I published an ebook, I was one of the biggest, what's the opposite of being a supporter?
A naysayer.
Oh, what?
A naysayer.
A naysayer, thank you. I was a huge naysayer of ebooks, and I didn't really want anything to do with them. Thankfully, my misconceptions were proved to be so, because 20% of online sales are of titles now not traditionally found in brick and mortar bookstores. So 20% of the books out there are not even sold at Barnes & Noble, and can't find them in a bookstore. So, okay. 52% of all books sold are also not done in bookstores. They're either just by self-publishers passing them out themselves, or done at conventions or literary workshops. So really, a lot of the traffic done by books today are not being handled the traditional way that we usually think of selling books. And finally, 78%.
Thank you.